Chapter 4:3-4. The two intellects, two lives, heaven and hell, resurrection, and Palingenesis. In the Gathas, we frequently find two intellects, Kratu and two lives, Ahu spoken of. These notions, therefore, formed undoubtedly part of Spitama Zarathustra's speculation. Well, if he was a prophet, there was no speculation about it. The two intellects are distinguished as the first and last. From the passages where they are mentioned, Yasna 44:19, 48:4, their meaning cannot be ascertained with certainty, but happily we find them mentioned in latter Avesta writings. See Yasht 2:1. By more expressive names, one of the intellects is called Asno Kratu, the original intellect, our wisdom, which we can best identify with the first in the Gathas. The other is styled Gaosho Sruto Kratu, the wisdom heard by the ear, which corresponds to the last. Another name of the first is Ma'inyu Kratu Mino Kird, spiritual or heavenly wisdom. Mino Kird. Now, we cannot be mistaken as to the meaning of these two intellects. The first intellect is not from earth, but from heaven, not human, but divine. The last intellect represents what man has heard and learned by experience. The wisdom gained in this way is, of course, inferior to the heavenly wisdom. Only the latter can instruct man in the higher matters of life, as we see from the latter book called Minokird, which is written in Pazand. See page 105, we are on page 310. The two lives are distinguished as Astvat, bodily, are Parahu, prior life, and as Manahya, mental, are Da'ibitya, the second. See Yasna 28:3, 43:3, 45:1, 46:19. Their meaning is clear enough and requires no further comment. They express our idea, body, and soul. To be distinguished from these two lives are the first and the last lives, which mean this life and that hereafter. The idea of a future life and the immortality of the soul is expressed very distinctly already in the Gathas, and pervades the whole of the latter Avesta literature. The belief in a life to come is one of the chief dogmas of the Zendavesta. See the passages about the fate of the soul after death, translated in the third essay, page 220 and 254. We are on page 311. Closely connected with this idea is the belief in heaven and hell, which Spitama Zarathustra himself clearly pronounced in his Gathas. The name for heaven is Garotman in Persian, house of hymns, because the angels are believed to sing hymns there. See Yasna 28:10, 34:2, which description agrees entirely with the Christian idea as found on Isaiah 6 and the Revelation of St. John. Garodamana is the residence of Ahura Mazda and the most blessed men, people. Yasna 51:15. Another more general name for heaven is Ahu Vahishta, the best life, afterwards shortened to Vahishta only, which is still extant in the modern Persian Bahisht, paradise. Hell is called Drujo Damana, house of destruction, in the Gathas. It is chiefly the residence of the poets and priests of the Deva religion, the riches of the Brahmins, Yasna 4611. The latter name is Duz-Anha, Yasht 1944, which is preserved in the modern Persian Duzak, hell. Between heaven and hell is Chinvat Pauratu, Chinvad pool, the bridge of the gatherer, or the bridge of the judge. Chinvat can have both meanings, which the soul of the pious alone can pass, while the wicked fall from it down into hell. It is mentioned, as we have seen already in the Gathas, Yasna 46, 10 and 11. The belief in the resurrection of the body at the time of the Last Judgment also forms one of the Zoroastrian dogmas, as the reader will have learned from the passage quoted above, 217. We're in page 312. In consequence of Burnoff's inquiries into the phrase Yava Etcha, Yava Ta Etcha, which had been translated by Enquetil till the resurrection, but which means nothing but forever and ever, kind of like the Laulam Wa'ad, something like that, in the Jewish text. The existence of such a doctrine in the Zendavesta was lately doubted, but there is not the slightest reason for doubting it, as anyone may convince himself from the passage quoted in page 217. We're still on page 312, by the way, where it is clearly stated that the dead shall rise again. That the resurrection of the dead was a common belief of the Magga long before the commencements of our era may be learned from the statement of Theopompus. See page 8 and 9. We're on page 312. Now, the question arises, had Spitama Zarathustra already pronounced this doctrine, which is one of the chief dogmas of Christianity and of the Jewish and Islamic religions, or is it of latter, perhaps foreign origin? Though, in the Gathas, there is no particular statement made of the resurrection of the dead, yet we find a phrase used which was afterwards always applied to signify the time of resurrection, and the restoration of all life that has been lost during the duration of creation. This is the expression Frashem Keren Aon Ahum, Yasna 39. A full explanation of it may be found in the author's work on the Gathas, volume 1, page 109 to 112. Partial print, so I think it's a 12. See page 150. We are still on page 312. They make the life lasting, i.e., they perpetuate the life. Out of this phrase, the substantive frasho kareta, perpetuation of life, was formed, by which in all the latter Avesta books, the whole period of resurrection and palingenesis at the end of time is to be understood. The resurrection forms only a part of it. That this event was really included in the term of frasho krete, one may distinctly infer from Benedad 1851, where spenta armaete, the earth, is invoked to restore, at the triumphant renovation of creation, the lost progeny, in the form of one knowing the Gathas, knowing the Yasna, and attending to the discourses. See page 249. I think the Shia narrations, in the Islamic world, parallel that probably closer, right? According to these statements, there can be no doubt that this important doctrine is a genuine Zoroastrian dogma, which developed itself naturally from Spitama Zarathustra's sayings. There is not the slightest trace of its being borrowed from a foreign source. Besides these Zoroastrian theology, besides these direct proofs of it forming a genuine and original part of Zoroastrian theology, it agrees completely with the spirit and tendency of the Parsi religion. All life of the good creation, especially that of man, people, bodily as well as spiritual, is a sacred pawn entrusted by God to man, who must keep his body free from impurity and his soul from sin. If death destroy the body in the natural course, suicide is, according to the Zoroastrian religion, one of the most horrible crimes belonging to the class of marg or zan, or deadly sins. To the same class belongs adultery. The committal of such sins leads straight down to hell, whence no ijasna can release the soul. It is not the fault of man who falls to an inexorable fate, but it is considered as the duty of God, who is the preserver of all life, to restore all life that has fallen a prey to death, to destroy this arch enemy of human life, and so make life everlasting. This is to be done at the time of the resurrection. Now, one should never, ever do moral or ethical, or whatever you want to call it, sin, thinking that, oh, I can just do such and such atonement. Now, if you want to repent of certain beliefs and actions after you've done them, yes, that's open for the living, but it's going to be so much harder if you go into it thinking, oh, I can just atone, right? A detailed description of the resurrection and the Last Judgment is contained in the 31st chapter of the Gunda Hish. See page 70 to 77 of Westergaard's book, which is no doubt founded on original Avesta sources, which are now lost. In it, an old song is embodied, the purport of which is to show that, though it appears to short-sighted mortals impossible for the body, when once dissolved into its elements, and those elements scattered in every direction, to be restored again, yet nothing is impossible for the hand of the Almighty, who created heaven and earth, endows the trees with sap, gives life to embryos in the womb, and so on, for awakening the dead bodies, restoring all life destroyed by death, and holding the Last Judgment. The great prophet Saoshias in the Avesta will appear by order of Ahura Mazda. This idea is already to be found in the Avesta text, only with the difference that sometimes several, see page 217, we are on page 313, sometimes only one Saoshias is mentioned. See page 254. The latter Parsi legends distinguish three great prophets who will appear before the end of the world. These are the men who will perpetuate life, who will produce Frasho Krete, men of the same stamp as the ancient prophets and fire priests, and bearing the same name, viz. Saoshyanto. They will be commissioned to check the influence of the devil, which increases at the time when this world is verging towards its end. By restoring truth and faith and the good Zoroastrian religion, their names are poetical and imply a simile. The dark period of wretchedness and sin in which they appear, being compared to night, and the era of eternal bliss they are endeavoring to bring about, being likened to the brilliant day. The first of these prophets is called Ukshatra Ma'o, Hushadar Ma, the moon of happy roll. Second is Ukshatra Bamya, Hushadar Bami, the aurora of happy roll. The third and greatest is called Saoshias, Soshiosh. He is believed to be a son of Spitama Zarathustra, begotten in a supernatural way. This means that just as Spitama Zarathustra was the greatest prophet and priest in ancient times, so will Soshiosh be the greatest of those to come. Therefore he alone brings with him a new Nask of the Zendavesta, which was hitherto unknown, and reveals it to mankind.